I've been to breweries where I feel like I taste really well-made beer, and it does not excite me. That's a great Belgian triple. I never have to have it again. There's no character. There's no life. It's not a scientific endeavor, and I don't think it ever should be. From my very first batch, I think we considered it an art form.
As far as any artistic expression that I could have personally, never anything like excited me. Coming up with a recipe for beer that hasn't been tried in this way or with this twist on it excited me, and it kind of like got me a new passion of what to do with my life, and to be able to formulate something that just comes from grains, hops, yeast, and then whatever else we want to throw into it, but making it work in a way that is delicious and not just a fun thing to do as a hobby, but to be able to present that to people. And a lot of artists don't even get that. You know, they make paintings. It's hard to sell paintings sometimes. For a $5 beer, it's pretty nice.
There's some famous monk who says it's impossible to make good beer with details.
Always take this.
Granted, they probably have a more technical program than I do, or most people. You definitely have people who view it almost entirely scientifically. You have people who view it probably almost entirely artistically. And both have their merits, so there's definitely room for being both. Somebody who's just brewing by the numbers and just doing it and not really paying attention, almost formulating recipes mechanically. They have to be influenced and inspired. Otherwise, it will just be another beer. I think that kind of sums it up, actually. It's not about being super technical and super knowledgeable. It's just, that's a support structure for being creative. You want to take a sip and go, there's a whole lot of beautiful things going on that are interplaying very well. And it's hard. It's hard to do that, but when you get it right,
Pretty much did.
it's very hard to find something that rewarding.
Every single one.
And it actually makes you feel better when you drink it.
Beer is that worldwide staple. It has been around basically since the beginning. Its origins can be traced back through written history from ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia to the brewing goddess named Kasi. Yet, things change, cultures shift, and the corn-based brews of yesteryear are nothing like today. But nonetheless, it has helped to shape the culture of craft beer. American craft was heavily influenced by European travel. This 4-ingredient lager was a beverage that was easy to produce, simpler to ship, and easy on the palate. Before 1920, there were over 1,300 breweries across America and roughly 100 million in population. That would have meant each brewery would have serviced around 76,000 people, assuming all 100 million drank. But there is a dark side to every story. Prohibition. When Prohibition hit, it forced the breweries to either close their doors or innovate. And Anheuser-Busch made non-alcoholic drinks like soda, in addition to ice cream and even truck bodies. Coors manufactured porcelain, as well as produced malted milk for candy companies. Pabst Blue Ribbon made cheese, and even got into the malt extract business, advertising themselves as a cooking product. It's not beer yet, right? Needless to say, breweries had to be creative if they wanted to survive.
I was always thinking ahead and being like, well, what do I really want to do with my life? What can I do to make a difference in this world? I had gone to school to become a youth pastor, and then I moved out to California to go to seminary and grad school. I was working full-time as an electrician, but it's not what I wanted to do. Wanting to become a pastor, influence people's lives, then it was kind of more like, I don't want to be in a structured religious institution, so maybe I'll become a cop and influence the community that way. I was actually pursuing the police academy and trying to become a police officer, and Scott was a gardener at university. And then we started brewing beer, and it started making sense, and we started to do some fun, funky stuff with what we were brewing. One day, Scott and I, we were just thinking, we just don't want to make beer to make beer's sake. We want to make a difference in the community we're in. When we started talking about it, we decided like, hey, this could be a possible future business opportunity. If we move into Pomona and start a brewery there, it's going to be a community type place. It's going to be a place that we want the community to come visit, people that live down the street, people that live down the road, just come and have a place for the residents of Pomona to come and enjoy life together. It was at that moment pretty much when I was denied access to the police department. In Pomona, actually, it's where our brewery is at. It kind of started to click for myself. I can make a difference by making great beer that excites people, brings people together as a community, and can change the community in that way. It seems kind of weird that I'm going to make a difference with beer and getting people drinking beer, not drunk necessarily, but just bringing people together, I guess, through a common enjoyment factor thing. And I think the pivotal point was me getting that denial letter from the city of Pomona and them saying, sorry, you'll have to start the process over again. And that was 18 months of my life interviewing, the background checks and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, no, you're denied, but you can try again in 6 months if you want. At that point, it was just like exhausting. And then we were pretty much just like, you know what? Now's the time if we're going to do anything. I reached out to my dad and just said, hey, Dad, if you could give anything. And I'm thinking $1,000, $2,000, like whatever you want to give so that we can get this ball rolling. And he reached out, gave a pretty decent, substantial investment. And we just started renting this place like a week later. As soon as that day hit, as soon as that all clicked together, it all came together. And we walked in this location we're in today, the day after we got our investment. It just kind of all clicked and we're like, let's do this. And it was serious business from then on out, I guess.
I will say this also as a caveat. We did not look at any other units besides this one for opening. We didn't look anywhere else. And that's a mistake. I will say that. I love this building. I seriously think it's amazing. But man, what if we just found another building that also had charm and foot traffic? Versus being at the end of a neighborhood off of a main road where nobody can see you from anywhere, So that I would say is something that I don't necessarily regret, but it really makes you scratch your head and go like, what if we did open in a business park? Like we had more parking. I think, it definitely would have made our tasting room more profitable, if nothing else. And I don't know that that's a bad thing or a good thing.
Scott and I started home brewing together and just making beer for fun. I wish we marked a date. So we've been brewing 5 or 6 years as home brewers. And then, excuse me.
I still remember taking off the lid of the carboy and just smelling beer. You know, a delicious Belgian smell. And I just remember going
It smells amazing.
we made a beer, you know?
I don't even know. It is sweet.
It smells delicious. It doesn't smell bad in any way. It smells like a delicious, drinkable beer. And I think that was definitely something clicked there where it was like, hey, we don't suck. You know, at least there's that.
All of them are good.
We were brewing our first few batches, sharing it with friends and sharing it with family. So we'd get together, brew some beer, and then we just started talking. And Scott and I were just like, we're going nowhere in life, so let's start a brewery, I guess.
Rationing of America's grain supply was of high priority during World War I. In return, helping to push the country into Prohibition much faster. The argument being that barley could be better served as bread to go to the soldiers. Extra use of manpower, grain, fuel, and cargo space focused on alcohol could be better served elsewhere, which never really ended up happening. On January 17th, 1920, the 18th Amendment outlawed the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors. Possibly because they were drinking, no one was completely sure what that meant. So the Volstead Act, or the National Prohibition Act, set in place to enforce the 18th Amendment and to define intoxicating liquors as any beverage containing more than 0.5% alcohol by volume, and superseded all existing prohibition laws in effect in states that had such legislation. And American bootlegging began. As bootlegging continued and organized crime grew, Prohibition began to lose its power and social acceptance of alcohol increased. The 21st Amendment was ratified December 5th, 1933. It repealed the 18th Amendment and voided the Volstead Act, returning control of alcohol to the states. Even after the Prohibition ended, it was still illegal to homebrew anything over an ABV of 0.05%, which is pretty close to just flavored water. Enter President Jimmy Carter, who signed the bill H.R. 1337 that allowed anyone to produce wine or beer for personal and family use. Homebrewing exploded in popularity. Now available to them were supplies, equipment, ingredients, and education that didn't exist before. The real explosion, though, is that in 1980, there were only a handful of craft breweries. Now, there are thousands.
The first beer we ever brewed was Deus Volt, which is our Belgian double. That was the first beer that we ever made. We bottled it up, gave it to some friends, and everyone said they liked it. And we were like, oh, of course they're going to say they like it. They're our friends. We gave it to some strangers, and they also liked it. And it was actually our first commercially awarded beer at a competition. So we got a bronze medal in the Belgian category. So we were like, oh, maybe we're onto something here. The beer culture in Pomona, specifically the city which we have called home, is, I guess I'll just say, on the rise. When we moved in here, there's one other bar in the area. It's a gastropub called the Rookery. They've tried to get the culture of craft beer going in this city of Pomona, and they've done a great job.
I'm reluctant to say that we started the craft beer scene in Pomona. The craft beer scene was alive. I wouldn't say alive and well, but it was alive.
So it's starting to pick up, and people are starting to recognize. Now there's 4 breweries in Pomona alone. In a city of over 150,000 people, which is pretty big.
We used to be a barbecue restaurant called Joey's Barbecue. At the time, your big distro companies had their hands on some craft beer, and that would be specifically like Sierra Nevada, Pete's Wicked Ale, Sam Adams, of course, being one. And those are craft, and they're still craft, at least considered that. So yeah, off the top of my head, I guess I can't really think of everything else. But either way, what we did though is strike on something that no one else in town really had.
When we moved in here, we'd have people come in every day and they'd just be like, well, what do you got that's like a Blue Moon? What do you got that's like a Miller Lite? What do you got that's like a Corona? Just give me your highest ABV beer, bro.
Some people that just wanted to get drunk faster, and one of the aspects of craft beer is higher ABV. Some guy would be like, you can drink a triple IPA, and it's like drinking 3 IPAs in one. Well, no, the math's off, but I see where you're going with that.
All right, there are easier ways to get drunk than beer, right?
One of the coolest stories about what we've done here is like you have the same people complaining about why we didn't have Coors Light, or the same people asking, oh, what barrel-aged saisons do you guys have on tap? And we're like, that's rad. Thank you for growing with us. We felt that we had a really good opportunity to not only push our agenda of craft beer, but guide it and direct it, because no one was really doing that around here.
So we've seen that demographic change a lot. And a lot of the people just started to recognize, like, I want to drink something that tastes good, not just something that gets me drunk. My family wasn't into craft beer before I started home brewing and making craft beer. My dad still drank whatever cheapest stuff he could get off the shelf. But now as I brew, I try to share that with my family as much as possible. And then they get more into it. Essentially, I like preaching about it and being like, you know what, this is something cool. This is something good. When I go to a bar in my hometown back in Kentucky or back up in Canada, I'm going to try my local craft brewery, because maybe they're doing something different than what I can get off the shelf from anywhere. Culturally, ethnically, agically, if that's a word, I don't think there's a more diverse industry than the craft beer community. It doesn't matter if you're 21, white, or if you're 67, African American, or 45, Hispanic. You can all come together over this beverage and go, this is a damn good beer, isn't it? Let's hang out and drink over it.
It is pretty weird. I've been in the restaurant industry for a long time, and that is certainly new. That is not a normal thing.
You find your common ground with a lot of people on, we're both at a brewery. And then usually like one of the first questions are, when was your first craft beer? And it's like conversations that are had, and everyone just seems to find some neutral ground to be able to talk about.
Our crowd when we were Joey's was generally white. And what I noticed with craft beer is that it's one of the very few movements I've come across in my life that nobody cares what you are, where you're from. It doesn't matter. You just come in, everyone's nice to each other. And that's the best thing I think I can say about the community in general. It's nice when you just see friendships spark up out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, these people are coming in together, and you would never think they'd ever hang out at all. It's very, very cool.
In the ideal situation, someone's going to sit down, smell it, swish it around in their glass, kind of get the aroma out of it, take a sip and enjoy it, and then carry on with conversation. That's ideal. And that happens most of the time. People come in to our tasting room and they'll sit down with friends, enjoy a beer, maybe 2, and then head out the door. So it's very few and far between that I actually see someone just like, oh, swear, this is 10%, man. Like, I'm just gonna slam 3 of these, All we're doing really as brewers is producing sugar water. And that's what we do. We put a bunch of malt.
We mix barley and water. And
hot water. We add some hops. We add some weird ingredients sometimes.
Boil it.
Put it in the fermenter.
And ferment it.
That's where you add your yeast.
We'll probably get beer out of the other side.
But at the end of our day, it's just sugar water.
There's so many things in between about doing this on this scale.
And we have had issues before
when they're 25 to 50 times the scale you're used to working with. It's a different world. There's all this information that we might be missing. And that happened with business, that happened with running customer service, that has to do with brewing, with just every aspect.
Imagine you have a business and you have no one that knows what they're doing about anything business related, and then you throw someone into the mix.
I want to fail, even if it fails. You know, I just want to try it.
You learn real quick what you're bad at, what you need help with, and we need to help with quite a bit. We feel like we had something dynamic and something good to start it with, and we can't ever forget that. But on the other hand, you have to be realistic about what you're not good at, what you can't do, and what you need help with. And I feel like those were the things you don't necessarily know intuitively. You have to learn that by experience. How many beers do we have left of a given brand? Are they carbonated? Are they ready to serve? Are they in the right spot in the physical location of the cold room? Are they old? Are they new? Do they need more time in the keg? Have they been too long in the keg? Is there some stuff we should get ready to pull?
You can't just say, oh, I'm really good at cooking at home, I'm gonna open a restaurant. Or I make this really good home brew, I'm gonna open a brewery. That doesn't work. And even if you make a stellar, weird beer that no one else can make at home, it doesn't translate into a business model. If you have 20 people come through, is there gonna be enough beer for everybody?
It's a beast to get open every day. And that's why we hired employees.
George, killing again? Forgot, we should probably make sure there's water in there. Actually, I need to measure out like another 10 because I originally planned the recipe with Belgian. So if we want to be, yeah, there's another bag on the forklift. Look at this. Hey, there's water in there. All right, cue the music. The thing about small batches and endless auto change things, the way we used to have to do it is we have to fill an entire trash can with milk grain, drag it up these steep ass stairs, and then bail it out one bucket at a time until you lift it. And so the days before the auger was our phase. No more bags to have. Jonathan, he was kind of hanging out. He brewed some recipes for us. He's a stellar brewer, just a great guy. And he was here one day, and some guy came in early. We were hanging out here on like a Saturday. Some guy shows up at like 11:30, and he's like, "Want beer? We don't open until 2." And he's just like, "I mean, it's 5 o'clock somewhere." And Jonathan goes, "I mean, it's 11:30 now. What's wrong with that?" We did a homebrew contest, and the poor guy, the poor guy, he made probably one of the best beers I've ever had. It was he called it a Neo-Mexicanus dark lager, and it was it had some color to it. It was like light black, if that makes sense. But it was just super good and very simple green bill. It's like you can tell he knows how to design a recipe. It's like Carafa 3, some like Vienna or something, and then some Pilsner malt. Super good. The Mexican lager strain from White Labs. And then he just did like a huge flame out edition of his homegrown Cascade. He put like a pound in a 5-gallon batch because he didn't know how strong it was. Yeah. And then like some Amarillo and some stuff. And it was literally like, as soon as I smelled it, I was like, dude, this is the one. And then we found out it was a lager, and I'm like, I know, but it's still the one. Like we can't not make this. Hopefully, okay, my plan this time is, last time we no sparged, this time we're gonna sparge. And just as soon as we hit 4 barrels, we'll divert the sparge into a plastic conical, so we'll have a party guile. So we'll have a second running spear. And then when we're done with Too Big to Fail, when that's chilled, we'll blast the boil kettle real quick and then pump that wort back in here and boil that and make a second beer. So we'll call that Too Small to Fall. We're at like 151.3-ish, so let's call the game.
We're basically just dedicated to making beer that we want to drink. It's like the selfish way to say it. We're just trying to stay true to what we wanted to do it for, why we started it, to find something unique or cool, some angle to brewing that was interesting, translate that up in ways. And we've kind of defined that over time to mean certain things without being extreme for extreme's sake.
I think if you stick to your guns and, really be passionate about what you're doing, it shows and people will follow.
Beer makers knew that Prohibition wouldn't last forever. During this new age where the craft breweries had all but been annihilated, a new era began. With this mass production mentality, a restricted Pilsner-style recipe was used that was optimal for large-scale production. Low-cost ingredients like corn and rice were used in order to provide elements needed for alcohol production, also contributing to the minimal flavor of the finished product. This created the American beer. Due to mass production and massive marketing, Americans grew complacent and uninterested in hearing much about anything else. Craft beer making stalled. It was all about the big three now. But craft brewers had other plans, and celebrating the best of what they had to offer was a step in the right direction. If Pabst can have a blue ribbon, why can't they?
I don't know how to describe this. I love winning awards.
Beer awards mean 1 degree above nothing to me. And it's not because we don't win them.
Our whole motto and what we do and how we do things is, let's do a traditional style and see what we can add to that beer to make it more special, to make it a little different, to make it something that stands out to people and be like, I wonder why this would work in this beer. When we were home brewing, we brewed a Belgian golden ale. We threw a bunch of rose water in it. We entered it into a homebrew competition to see what would happen. Same competition, we brewed a Imperial Red Ale, but more of a Scottish Red Ale, just malty. And we're like, what do Scottish people eat? I researched it. Haggis. No, we're not going to throw lamb stomach in a beer. Kale. Turnips. Turnips don't produce that much flavor. Let's dice them up, throw it in the mash, and we'll throw it in the boil and put turnips in our red ale.
Essentially, as homebrewers, we were just really excited about brewing and brewing to try something different. Our first beer was very plain, but very good.
And we won 2 medals in the homebrew competition for those 2 beers.
You could tell where we were going really fast was trying to get to using different ingredients to get different results.
The beer we were doing was to produce something that's different than what other people are doing, yet tastes good. I guess that's a good factor of X.
We have a gold, we have a bronze in, a semi-big competition. Some of our beers have advanced through rounds in some of the biggest competitions. They haven't medaled.
Whenever you win something, of course, it's an acknowledgement of the hard work you've done. But awards are weird sometimes because it's very subjectively based.
You have to limit yourself as a brewer to a certain category. I like brown ales this way, but our judging notes said that it was too sweet, so we better adjust our recipe.
We'll get score sheets back that like, this guy tasted off flavor, off flavor, off flavor.
It's like, oh man, look at all the stuff they wrote, We got to change everything. It's like, for what? 4 old dudes who knows if they've had 30 beers before they tried mine? Phenolic. And then move on. I've gotten caught up in that.
It comes down to the individual taste and individual appreciation of a flavor. There are parameters for styles and there are parameters for everything, but when it comes down to it, and I've judged commercial competitions, it comes down to what you like better than something else.
Do your customers like it? Do you like it? Or forget judges, man. Who cares,
People that come in here and pay their money for it, that's really what speaks. And if they're going to keep buying it, an award doesn't mean anything. But an award is always good for the ego, I guess. It makes you feel the tinglies inside.
Young, wild, and ready to make
When we first opened, we had a beer that we called the British Mild. We didn't know what to call it. It was kind of Englishy, and it was really light. It was like 4%. And it was so good. It was so good. But we didn't know our hop utilization in our tank and stuff, so we under-hopped it, and it was just a lot more malty. And then we also had a stuck mash, so we didn't filter out everything. It was just like a bad brew day. But the beer turned out so good. And we tried making it like 2 or 3 times after that, and we just never could do it. I really miss that beer.
At the end of the day, the toughest thing to do as a brewer is to have to decide whether, you know what, this doesn't taste like it should. We can either pass it off as what it is and try to get away with it, or for us, and what we normally do and make the decision is, this isn't good enough. We have to bite the bullet, dump it down the drain, and start again.
Maybe in our early days, we had some beer that we were not proud of, that we let slide. But now the discipline is like, dump it. You know what I mean? Like, if it's questionable, just get rid of it. It's not worth the damage in your reputation.
When you're dealing, we're a small company, every batch of beer that we make, we need to sell that beer. So when we come to a beer and we have to dump 10 barrels of beer down the drain to a large, huge brewery, that's like chump change. That's like, yeah, only 10 barrels of beer, whatever. But for us, that's 8 hours of labor invested. That's 2 weeks of time invested in a fermenter. And we have to make that decision to just dump all that ingredient cost, labor cost, everything down the drain and start over and lose 2 weeks on having that beer available.
You know, it's like, if it wasn't me, would we be better? You know, like, and us, a lot of times the answer is yes, but I think what you do after that little self-deprecation is really important. Do you learn more? Do you get better? Or do you just swallow? And I've done both. Learning more is much better.
It's hard to find your place in the marketplace and get where you want to go. I think that's the biggest difference in craft beer than any other industry in, I would say, the world, but I don't know every industry in the world. We are fighting, we are competing for shelf space and tap handles, but at the same time, we all want each other to succeed because we're all fighting that evil giant conglomerate known as fill in the blank here. We try to make a beer that works together and makes almost like a culinary experience for people when they go out to a restaurant and they have a food that's like, wow, this all works together. We want to make a beer that we put in front of you that it works together. Like, you get the different flavors out of it, but just in the right amounts. And that's, to me, that's artwork. Like, I don't know what anyone else thinks, but trying to produce something that you can taste a little bit of this, a little bit of this, more of this, and make it come together into something that's like delicious and beautiful, that's hard to do. And we fail a lot at it. But we throw those failures out and we keep working on it till we get something that is beautiful, that's awesome, that's delicious. And then we present that to the public and have them decide whether it's something that they agree with us on or not.
Gian Geronimo, who would have thought that beer is such a good seller? I don't even know how it became such a big seller. Probably because it's a damn good beer. But, you know, people treat it like a 4% really easy to drink beer. And it is a really easy to drink beer, but it's also happens to be 10%. And that's not necessarily because we wanted to get a big beer. It just was kind of a joke when we made it as a 5-gallon batch. And again, when you're scaling it up, why change it? You know, alcohol is a flavor, unfortunately. You know, like, if you take it out, it tastes different. I hate it when you read the ingredients list on a beer and it gets you all excited. It has chilies, unicorn hair, whatever. I really want to try that. And you taste it and it's just like a brown ale. Maybe there's something to it in the back, but nothing really. I think that's more disappointing than just somebody saying, I made a brown ale and it's good. You know, you're like, cool.
It's lost now too. Every single beer description is just in your face with every single ingredient that's there. That's something that's kind of that's nice about the wine scene. You drink a glass and then you're picking out whatever tannins, whatever wood flavors you're getting out of there, and you're able to make your own decision. I liken that to poisoning the well. Most people can't even taste it, or they haven't even tasted the fruit that you're talking about in the beer. They haven't like gone out and ate one. A lot of times, you know, I'm like, I've never had that before, so I wouldn't know if it was there or not.
If you can throw those great ingredients in there and you pulled it off to where everything is accessible to the palate, I think it's beautiful. Whatever the adjectives you want to use are, you know, you've hit it where you make a beer that is both really well executed. There's nothing technically in your way of enjoying the prowess of wonderfully inspired brewing. And I think that's a very difficult line to walk, and it's not possible to walk it all the time and to get every beer to this just inspirational. People who drink it are going to write stories about it, but that's the goal for me anyway. Sometimes we can celebrate and praise the technical aspect, celebrate and praise the artistic aspect, or ignore and shame either aspect. But I feel like nobody disagrees when they have that beer that is both inspired and technically executed, that there's something to that makes people kind of want it more so than just a well-made beer or like a cool idea beer.
The most exciting thing is when someone comes in the door and they're like, this is incredible. This is awesome. I will pay you money to drink this, and I made it. That's exciting to me, because it's like, oh, someone's actually paying for something that I produced.
Doing something that we believe is unique and has a very clear voice. I think that's been our goal. I often say everybody makes a beer you love. I mean, you can go to, between you and me, that's not true, but no, but you can go to almost any brewery in the country and you're going to find something you love. I've found that in most cases. I'll find something at least I would drink again. It's rare that you go to a place that just totally screwed the pooch. Why would we want to add our hat to the ring? Why would we want to do that? And I think it's just because we're trying to push ourselves to always be willing to brew something brave, do something, unique, do something that hasn't been done, not for the sake of it not being done before, but essentially because it could be good and maybe nobody had thought of it. That's kind of the main driving force. It wasn't definitely to make money, because that doesn't happen.
It wasn't until the 1970s that things began to change. In 1977, Michael Jordan Jackson wrote The World Guide to Beer. At this time, there were roughly 44 brewing companies left. 44. The book became a huge inspiration to the beer revolution, showing Americans that there was more than just the lager. This hugely increased the palate possibilities. Jackson considered beer as a component of culture and described beers in their cultural context. Because it is more than just a beer. It's a culture.
California Rollin' is probably my favorite beer that we've ever done, because it's just ridiculous. A bunch of people in the company, I think, contributed to the idea, So Jason and an employee, I think, talking about, I don't know how it would be possible to make a sushi beer. And then we're all kind of brainstorming on like, well, how would that be? And, and it just kind of came together into like what I believe is a truly unique and truly wonderful product. I'd bet a lot of money that anyone would find it at least enjoyable, that no matter who you are or what you like. I think that's really, really, really rare. That you have a beer that's that far weird as far as the ingredients that went into it, yet that drinkable and delicious. It has no offensive flavor, even though it has offensive ingredients, I guess, like crab that we cook in the boiling beer and seaweed that we steep in the boiling beer. That could be very inflammatory for certain people, especially me. I don't even like sushi, but I love that beer.
Whenever someone asks me, like, what beer would you get? What beer would you want? I have to look at the board. One beer, when it's always on point, it is Tangeronimo. It's our Belgian style golden strong ale with tangerines and elderflower. It's 10% ABV, and that doesn't influence why I drink it. It's just delicious. When it's on point, and we strive to make it on point every time, that's what I go to.
It's not true of every brewery, but a lot of breweries get known for a thing. That's the brewery that makes blah. They're the ones that make blah. Sanctum, they're the ones that make that crazy sushi beer. I'm happy with that. I'll take it. I'd rather be known for doing something that's very unique and excellent, rather than just being really excellent at something that's very common. Does that make sense? Yeah. That sounded like a good soundbite in my head.
And they're not mutually exclusive either. I think you could do both. And now, whether you prefer to be known for one or the other, that's a personal take. Which is funny that he said that. It's, again, the Deus Vult might be my favorite American Belgian double. I'm like, well, you do one style really damn well. And to be truly special as a brewer, you need to be able to do both.
In 1980, there were only 8 craft breweries. In 94, there were 537. In 2013, there were over 2,800. The craft industry had gained 7.8% of the US retail beer market. By 2016, the numbers grew to 6,000 breweries, serving 12.3% of the industry. By 2021, there were over 9,000 breweries and 3,708 tap rooms. Craft beer officially made up just over a quarter of the US retail beer market. From county to country, you could say that beer culture in America is on the rise.
That's the goal, for me anyway, is to make beer that's not just, I've heard about that style, I should try to make a good one. It has to come from a place of like, what do I want to drink? What do I want it to taste like? What do I want to feel like when I smell it? What do I want to think about when I take a sip? How do I want the complexity to change as it warms up? All that stuff is so interconnected. And I feel like that's a really big aspect of brewing that is sometimes overlooked. If you can throw those great ingredients in there and you pulled it off to where everything is accessible to the palate, I think it's beautiful. It really is rewarding as a beer drinker when you taste a beer like that and you just can't help yourself but go like, damn, that's awesome. I wonder how they did that.
It's a really weird industry. It really is. Like, it doesn't make any sense to business people, especially. It's not all about trouncing the next competition and just like killing them and being like, well, screw you, we're going to do what we want to do. It's more of a, well, how can we get you to be as best as you can be so that this industry excels and this industry of independent craft brewers can become something that's changing the world and like changing the form of how business is done.
And when the COVID kind of first came out, like, all right, 2 weeks, this whole thing will blow over, like I've never had a quarantine order in my life, so I'm like 2 weeks go by and I think it was just going to continue through the next month. It was like probably a third, fourth, fifth week, something like, I don't remember exactly of that.
And it was just like, you know, I was just kind of reading between the lines. There's just no way. It just sucked. It was a really shitty place to be in. It didn't feel good. It was like, you know, I was the one doing the day-to-day stuff, and I was like, there's just no way this isn't sustainable. You have to understand that, like, the art of this is one aspect, and the commerce is another, and the commerce is going to win every time. Even for the artist, the commerce has to exist on some level. The bedrock, I thought, was art, and I think it sounds like a sellout to say that the bedrock is the commerce, but it's like it's not. I think that you have to have that, and then because then you can ignore it. If a brewery can navigate that space, they're going to win every time. They have to. I don't view it as a failure. I really don't. I think it takes a lot to run a business for 6 years, and especially one with, you know, no parking next to a train track. But you know, speaking of which, there we go. But you know, I'm happy with it. I think we did okay.
If you take one step, then you will be a little closer to your dream than if you stay just where you are. Keep that chin held up and fight your battles with your feet, and hobbled bear, you'll find a path that has your name. Here I am, I'm ready to go again, ready to say goodbye when the sky is high. No reason to stay on ground. Lift your hands and you can touch and fly. The minute you felt you found, understand that you can have it all. The wings are in your soul.
You guys remember Pinky and the Brain? Oh yeah. There's an episode where they do like a film noir kind of thing, and Brain says, "We're gonna take over the world," and then Pomona.